The music swells as she steps into the aisle, her heart trembling with joy and disbelief. Every face turns toward her, a blur of smiles, cameras, and whispered admiration. She breathes in the scent of white roses and candle wax, trying to steady her hands on the bouquet. But then, just as her eyes lock on him, his lips move. A whisper, barely audible. Her name, she thinks at first. But now, the words are soft, secret, and aimed at someone else standing far too close to him. He says, eyes flicking toward her maid of honor. The world goes silent. The music continues, unaware of what has just shattered. She keeps walking, step by trembling step, the sound of her heartbeat louder than the organ's notes. Is this a mistake, or the moment her entire life collapses? What would you do if you heard the person you love whisper those words to your best friend at the altar seconds before forever? The music never falters. Her body moves automatically, each step rehearsed 1,000 times, but her mind spirals into disbelief. Did she mishear him? Could he have meant it differently? The world has slowed to syrup, thick, heavy, unreal. The guests' faces blur together, clapping softly as she draws closer to the altar. The maid of honor avoids her eyes, cheeks flushed, while the groom's forced smile trembles under guilt. Her stomach twists as the officiant's voice echoes through the vaulted ceiling, asking if everyone is ready to begin. Ready. She almost laughs. Ready for what? A wedding or a confession? As she reaches the altar, every breath feels borrowed. The officiant's words bounce off the walls like meaningless echoes. The groom takes her hand, warm yet distant. A flicker of guilt flashes behind his eyes, and she wonders if the crowd can feel it too, the invisible fracture spreading between them. The maid of honor shifts slightly, her perfume drifting through the air like a ghost of a secret. The bride's pulse drums in her ears. The ceremony has begun, but the love has already ended. A smile stretches across her lips, mechanical and aching. Each vow feels like glass cutting into her chest. Every time he says, "forever," she imagines the word dissolving in his throat. The guests sigh at the beauty of it all, unaware they're applauding a tragedy in progress. The maid of honor blinks back tears, the kind that don't belong to joy. The bride steals a glance at her best friend, searching for any hint of truth, but finds only silence, and that silence is deafening. The officiant asks if anyone objects, and for one impossible heartbeat, she almost raises her hand. The room is still thick with anticipation. Her mother's proud gaze meets hers, steady and unaware. The maid of honor stares at the floor. The groom swallows hard. The bride's lips part, but no sound escapes. Instead, she lowers her gaze, knowing that silence will cost her more than truth ever could. The ceremony continues, but her heart has already walked away. The vows continue, each word tasting bitter on her tongue. Every promise sounds hollow now, a script recited for the sake of appearance. The guests lean forward, sighing at the beauty of their love story, but she feels the weight of every eye pressing down on her trembling hands. The groom's gaze flickers between her and the maid of honor, as though tethered by invisible guilt. The bride smiles on cue, her voice steady, but her heart fractured beyond repair. Every second she wonders, should she stop this? Should she tear away the veil and demand the truth? Right here, before the world. The officiant speaks about love and faith, about trust and loyalty. The words sting her ears like cruel iron. The bride's mind drifts to late nights of laughter, secrets shared over coffee, the maid of honor's comforting embrace when wedding stress overwhelmed her. How easily that comfort now feels like betrayal. She forces her breathing to match the rhythm of the vows, her pulse a storm beneath her calm exterior. The groom slides the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, his touch no longer a promise, but an apology unspoken. Applause fills the air as the officiant pronounces them husband and wife, the words echoing like distant thunder. The groom leans in to kiss her, and she lets him, lips brushing in front of a sea of cheering faces. But behind that perfect picture lies a truth rotting beneath the surface. The maid of honor averts her eyes, tears threatening to spill as her hands tighten around her bouquet. The bride feels nothing. No spark, no joy, just a hollow ache and a ringing question. How long had this been happening behind her back? The recessional music plays and petals rain down like confetti made of lies. The bride holds onto the groom's arm as they walk down the aisle together, her smile rehearsed and hollow. Every flash from a camera feels like lightning, every cheer like thunder mocking her silence. The maid of honor follows closely behind, trying not to meet her gaze. The bride can feel her presence like a shadow pressed against her back. Love, loyalty, betrayal. They all blend together into one unbearable heartbeat. She knows now that this marriage began with a secret. Outside, the air feels lighter but colder. The newlyweds stand before the waiting guests, cameras flashing as laughter fills the space. The bride's mother rushes forward with tears of pride, unaware of the devastation behind her daughter's smile. The groom's hand finds the bride's waist, possessive, practiced. The maid of honor lingers at the edge of the crowd, her eyes meeting his for a fleeting second that speaks louder than words. The bride notices. She always notices, and in that moment she makes a silent promise, not of love, but of reckoning. The reception hall glows like a dream, golden light, clinking glasses, laughter echoing under crystal chandeliers. The bride sits beside her new husband, every smile a mask craft for photographs. Inside, she's unraveling. The maid of honor moves gracefully through the crowd, pouring champagne, her laughter soft and strained. The groom's gaze follows her for a moment too long. The bride notices, of course she does, and that flicker of longing cuts deeper than any blade. The music swells, romantic and cruel. Tonight was supposed to be forever, but forever is starting to feel like a cage built from betrayal. As the band plays, she slips away for a breath of air. The corridor is dim, lined with portraits and soft candlelight. She scrolls through her phone to silence the chaos in her mind, and then she sees it. A message flashes across her screen, his name and below it words she can't unsee. "You looked beautiful today. I wish it was you." Her chest tightens, her vision blurs. Another message. Hers, the maid of honor's reply. "Stop. Someone will see." The room spins. In the next hall, she hears laughter. Familiar voices. Her heart races toward the sound. She follows the sound into a quiet corner of the venue, heart pounding like footsteps behind her. There they are, him and her, laughing softly, unaware they're being watched. The maid of honor leans close, whispering something that makes his shoulders relax. He reaches for her hand. Time stops. The bride feels her world tilt sideways. She steps back into the shadows, unable to breathe. The laughter turns to silence. For a split second, he looks over his shoulder. Their eyes meet. And in that frozen glance, the truth is undeniable. She retreats into the bathroom, locking the door behind her. The muffled sound of music seeps through the walls. In the mirror, the reflection looks foreign. A woman in white, mascara-streaked, breathing hard, trying not to scream. The laughter, the whispers, the vows, it all blurs together until she can't tell what's real anymore. Her fingers clutch the sink, nails biting porcelain. A single tear slips down and lands on her ring, gleaming under harsh fluorescent light. She slides it off slowly, staring at the bare mark it leaves behind. When she returns to the reception, the world continues pretending. Music, dancing, laughter, the perfect illusion. The maid of honor is on the dance floor now, spinning under soft lights, her face radiant with a joy that feels stolen. The groom watches from the edge, drink in hand, guilt flickering across his face like a secret burning through him. The bride stands at a distance, cold champagne in her hand, gaze fixed on both of them. She knows now that she isn't imagining it. The truth is real, and it's standing right in front of her, dancing in her dress color, smiling in her friend's face. The lights dim and the music softens to a tender melody. Their first dance. Everyone gathers around the floor, smiling and swaying with their phones raised, ready to capture perfection. The bride takes his hand, her skin cold against his warmth. He pulls her close, whispering words meant to sound loving. But all she hears is the echo of that whisper from the aisle. Every spin feels like a lie. Every gaze like a wound reopening. The crowd cheers as they move in rhythm. But behind her polite smile, she's counting the seconds until she can let go. He leans in to kiss her forehead, and his eyes drift toward the maid of honor once again. The song changes upbeat now, and the guests pour onto the floor. Laughter fills the air again. The bride steps aside, finally free from his touch, and watches him laugh too easily with friends, too comfortably near the maid of honor. Their bodies tilt toward each other unconsciously, caught in a rhythm all their own. The bride stands near the dessert table, invisible, sipping champagne that burns more than it soothes. She thinks of every promise he made, every night he swore she was the only one. Her hands shake as she sets the glass down. She's no longer sure if she's shaking from anger or heartbreak. Someone shouts for the maid of honor to join the newlyweds for a photo. Cameras flash as the three of them stand side by side, the perfect trio of happiness. The photographer tells them to smile, and they do. 3 different smiles for 3 different truths. The bride's feels carved in stone. The groom's looks guilty. And the maid of honors trembles at the corners. The shutter clicks again and again, freezing the moment in time. A perfect photo for a broken album. When the photographer walks away, silence fills the space between them, louder than any music. The microphone crackles as the best man begins his toast, jokes filling the air like bubbles. Laughter echoes. The bride tries to listen, but her eyes keep finding the maid of honor, whose hand now rests lightly on the groom's arm as she laughs. The gesture is small, fleeting, but intimate. The bride's pulse quickens, rage rising beneath her calm exterior. Her mother's proud gaze meets hers across the table, silently begging her to smile, to endure. She does. For now. But every muscle in her body is screaming for release. The next song begins and the maid of honor joins the dance floor. The bride watches her sway gracefully under the lights, the groom's gaze never straying. Something inside the bride snaps. Not loudly, not visibly, but deeply. She steps onto the dance floor too, smile frozen body, moving in rhythm beside them. For a moment, the 3 of them dance together, faces inches apart, smiles polished for the crowd. Then she leans close to her husband's ear and whispers, calm and sharp, "I know." His smile falters. The music keeps playing. But for the first time all night, he can't look at her. The air thickens with the scent of champagne and sweat. The laughter grows louder, more reckless, as the night deepens. The bride sits perfectly still, the storm in her chest quiet but deadly. The maid of honor is laughing with her husband again, too close, too familiar. Every glance, every word feels like another betrayal dressed in celebration. Then the microphone screeches softly. The mother of the bride, smiling, takes the stage for her toast. She begins with warmth, her voice trembling with emotion. But halfway through, her eyes narrow on the groom and the maid of honor, catching a spark of something she should have seen. The bride's heart stops as her mother's tone changes. The mother's voice wavers, but she doesn't stop. "A wedding," she says, "is built on honesty." The room quiets. The maid of honor freezes mid-smile, The groom's hand tightens around his glass. The bride knows her mother well enough to recognize the edge in her tone. Something is about to break. She tries to intervene, to smile, to change the mood, but it's too late. Her mother's eyes flick between the two guilty faces, and she adds, "And may no one ever stand where they shouldn't, loving who they shouldn't, on a day like this." Silence floods the room. The microphone hums. The truth has been spoken, though no names were needed. Gasps ripple through the crowd. The band stops playing. Cameras lower. The bride's heartbeat hammers in her ears as she stares at her mother, who stands defiantly, refusing to take back her words. The groom reaches for her hand, but she jerks away. Every eye in the room is on them now. Friends, family, strangers, all watching the picture-perfect wedding collapse in real time. The maid of honor whispers something under her breath, pleading, but the bride stands, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Her voice shakes when she finally speaks. "How long?" The question slices through the silence like a blade. The groom opens his mouth, but no words come. The maid of honor steps forward, desperate, whispering, "Please, don't do this here." The bride laughs, a sound too bitter to be human. The crowd begins to murmur, phones lifted discreetly, recording what should never be remembered. Her dress shimmers under the light, pure and broken all at once. She looks at him, this man she thought she knew, and feels nothing but emptiness. "You already did this here," she whispers, voice trembling but clear. A single tear rolls down her cheek. The music starts again by accident, too bright, too cheerful for the destruction it scores. The bride turns, veil fluttering behind her as she walks toward the exit. The hall falls into chaos. Voices rising, people chasing, the groom calling her name. But she doesn't stop. Her heels click across the marble floor like a countdown. The door bursts open, and the night greets her with cold air and the sound of distant thunder. Rain begins to fall, soft at first, then relentless. She steps into it without hesitation, her dress soaking through instantly. Behind her, the music fades, replaced by the sound of her mother's sobs and the crowd's whispers. Ahead, only darkness and the promise of truth. Rain pounds against the pavement as she stumbles into the courtyard, soaked and trembling. Her veil clings to her skin, mascara bleeding down her cheeks, but she doesn't care. She just keeps walking, heels sinking into the mud. Behind her, the doors burst open. The groom's voice cuts through the storm, calling her name. The maid of honor's footsteps echo faintly behind him. Lightning flashes, revealing all three of them framed in the downpour, like actors in a tragedy too cruel to end. The bride stops and turns, her chest heaving. She doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. Her silence is sharper than any accusation. Or he reaches her, breathless, eyes wild. "It's not what you think," he says, his voice breaking. She almost laughs. It's always what she thinks. The rain drowns his excuses, washing the lies from his lips. "Say it," she whispers, barely audible. He hesitates. She steps closer, her face inches from his, water dripping from her eyelashes. "Say her name," she demands. The maid of honor stands behind him, shaking, whispering, "Please stop." But the bride doesn't. Not this time. The storm roars louder, as if the sky itself is listening for his confession. He finally breaks. The words tumble out between gasps. "I loved her before you," he confesses, his voice shattering in the rain. "But she chose you." The bride stands still, her body numb, each syllable crashing into her like thunder. The maid of honor sobs, shaking her head. "It was a mistake." But the damage is already carved into the night. The bride steps back, trembling from more than the cold. Every dream she ever had, Every vow, every hope melts into the puddles at her feet. The rain hides her tears, but her voice is clear. Then you both deserve each other. The groom reaches for her, but she steps back. "Don't touch me," she whispers, voice breaking for the first time. Her veil slips off, caught by the wind, swirling into the night like a ghost of what was lost. The maid of honor collapses to her knees, sobbing apologies that vanish into the thunder. The groom stands frozen, raindrops streaming down his face, his hands hanging uselessly at his sides. The bride looks at them both one last time, then lifts her chin. "You ruined it," she says softly. "But thank you for showing me who you are." Lightning flashes again, painting her in silver and sorrow. She turns and walks into the darkness, rain soaking every step. Behind her, the groom collapses to his knees beside the maid of honor, both broken in the same puddle of regret. The thunder fades into distant rumbles as the bride disappears down the long stone path, her gown trailing through the water like a ghostly ribbon. The storm begins to ease, and through the silence comes a faint chime from the chapel bells. Midnight. Her wedding day is over, and so is everything she thought she knew. But as she walks away, drenched and heartbroken, a strange calm takes hold. Freedom has never looked so tragic or so beautiful. Dawn breaks through the gray sky, washing the world in cold light. The rain has stopped, leaving puddles like mirrors scattered across the courtyard. Inside the chapel, the air is heavy with wilted flowers and silence. The bride steps through the doorway once more, barefoot now, her gown torn and heavy from the night before. Every step echoes softly against the marble floor. The same aisle that carried her toward promises now feels like a road of ghosts. The petals that once symbolized joy are soggy beneath her feet. Their colors faded. She doesn't cry anymore. She's emptied of everything but truth. The pews are empty, but the ghosts of laughter still linger. She pauses halfway down the aisle, staring at the altar where her world had shattered. Her reflection glimmers faintly in a puddle on the floor, tired eyes, smeared makeup, and a woman she barely recognizes. She kneels slowly, picking up her bouquet from the ground. The petals fall apart in her hands, just as fragile as the love she lost. For the first time, she doesn't feel anger, only release. She realizes that sometimes destruction isn't the end, it's the beginning. She reaches the altar and sets the ring on its cold stone surface. The gold catches the morning light for a fleeting moment before she turns her hand away. Her gaze lingers on it, everything it represented, everything it failed to hold. Her lips tremble. There's nothing left to say. She stands tall, her shoulders squared, her eyes steady for the first time since the ceremony began. She leaves the ring behind, a symbol of something she no longer belongs to. As she walks back down the aisle, the sound of her footsteps fills the empty church. Every echo is a heartbeat, slow, strong, alive. She remembers the faces that once smiled here, the whispers, the betrayal, but it all feels distant now, like a story that no longer belongs to her. Outside, the storm has washed everything clean. She steps through the doors, her gown catching the light. For the first time, she smiles, not with joy, but with power. The girl who walked down the aisle is gone. The woman who leaves is unbreakable. Outside, the world feels new. The grass glistens with dew. The clouds part just enough to reveal a strip of golden sky. She stands alone, breathing in the silence. The veil is gone, the ring is gone, and so is the illusion. She turns once toward the chapel, eyes calm, then walks away, barefoot across the wet ground. The wind tugs at her dress, carrying with it the faint scent of rain and roses. Somewhere behind her, bells begin to toll, slow and mournful, but she doesn't look back. Her story began with, "I love you." It ends with freedom.